Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon, retired NYPD Sergeant with 27 years of service. And with me tonight, straight out of Brooklyn, retired NYPD Detective Phil Grimaldi. How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing pretty good, Billy, and I'm excited to meet our new guests.
Yes, and we have two exciting new guests. They're from Harvard. One of them's from Harvard, graduated from Harvard, and they're from Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we have Laura Rodriguez McDonald. I never like those hyphenated names. I say, pick one name, all right? Stop with the hyphenated shit.
It's weird. She makes me keep the Rodriguez in. It's really just McDonald.
Okay, yeah, it gives you that ethnic spice,
Yes,
and
exactly.
of course, and then we have Sarah Alcorn, who is a private eye, and they're both the co-hosts of an exciting podcast called Ivy League Murders. So before we get into this, guys, we're going to go into our Police Off the Cuff song, and we'll be right back.
It's a show with two retired detectives that were in the thick of New York crime, fast and hectic. They got some stories and some jokes, even an interview with the most powerful folks. Off the cuff, off the cuff. One episode just ain't enough. Get a little laughter and an interview too. It's maybe the best thing you can do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I know we're in for a hell of a show because these two were rocking out as when they heard the Police Off the Cuff song. They were dancing there.
Yeah.
And I got a little nervous there, but that's all right. So, guys, it's great to have you on the show. In fact, I ran into Bob Starkman, who was on your show, and he's good friends with Joe Pistone, of course, a.k.a. Donnie Brasco. And I was in Florida in a place called Hillsborough Beach. And I gave Bob Starkman a call, who lives right around there. I don't want to give up where these guys live. They're very nervous about people knowing where they live.
Yeah,
and we met for lunch, and then he told me to have you two guys on the show, and here you are.
Oh, we love Bob and we love Joe, and yeah, we had them on. They were
fabulous, and thank you so much for having us. Really
no,
grateful.
It's great. Joe Pistone. The only problem I have when he comes on the show, he refuses to light himself. He's in the dark because he thinks someone's going to find him, So I'm like, Joe, could you turn up some lights so people can see you? It's crazy.
I know, and he's got the baseball hat and the sunglasses.
Yeah, sunglasses. I was like, Joe, do you wear sunglasses even at night,
Yeah, but if you did
honored.
what he did to the mafia, you might want to be in the dark too,
That's true.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Well, we have a picture of Joe Pistone in an Ivy League Murders t-shirt, which is quite an honor.
Oh my God, I pulled that one up. I have it here. Here we go.
Yeah, so we were, yes. So
There
that
they are.
we were very excited. Bob made that happen.
And it's not that Joe Pistone is short; it's that Bob Starkman
he's
is
very
about
tall.
6'5",
Yeah.
6'6". So
yeah, basketball coach. Yep.
yeah, a Hall of Fame, actually, a junior college Hall of Fame basketball coach.
And an author.
Yeah,
On both courts. Yeah.
inside both courts. I have that. I
Inside
have
both
the
courts,
shirt.
Yeah.
He gave me the
Me
shirt,
too.
but my 17-inch guns were ripping through the arms, so I couldn't.
All right, here we go.
So it didn't fit. So guys,
All right,
let's get right.
Wait. Hold on a second. We got Professor, Sergeant of the Police Department, comedian, actor, bodybuilder. We got to add bodybuilder now.
So guys, I wanted to find out. So you started this podcast. I guess you've been in it for, I guess, over a year and a half now.
Yeah. Actually over 2 years now.
Oh my
Yeah.
God! Well, tell us what the premise is besides you guys posing for pictures by cemeteries and other Charlie's Angels type pictures. What is the premise of this podcast?
We needed an excuse to pose, so we had to come up with. Well, Sarah and I actually grew up in Cambridge in Harvard Square, and really with both of us had parents working at Harvard. So we grew up really right in the middle of Harvard University, and we went to high school right behind Harvard Yard. So we were both, I mean, I know I was, and Sarah probably too, immersed in Harvard from a very young age. And then Sarah more than me because she went there. And I was always kind of curious about the dark side of Harvard because it was always presented to me as such a perfect place. And there were some big high profile cases in like the 80s and 90s and of people who went to Harvard murdering people and other Ivy League schools. And I just started to get really curious. I'd always been a true crime fan. I mean, I've read Helter Skelter probably when I was 12. I mean, I've always, and Sarah and I connected, and it was just the perfect union.
Yeah, it's same thing. I mean, I went to Harvard. I've always been obsessed with crime. I've been a private investigator for 23 years. So obviously, I've been interested in crime, why, the investigative process, everything like that. And so, Laura and I met, and if anything, Laura was more crime obsessed than I was. And so we just started talking about, hey, maybe we could cover these cases. And I think me going to Harvard sparked something in Laura too. And mostly, we kind of pick up where Dominic Dunn, left off, I think, in some ways. Not that I'm comparing us to Dominic Dunn, but that whole idea of like how privilege can kind of really pervert justice. And and so the Ivies are a good, it's just good to look at the Ivies because you get a lot of that at the all 8 Ivies.
Yeah,
Sarah, one of the things that for the most part, I had a team of detectives in Manhattan North Homicide Squad, and I really didn't do the interviews and interrogations. Not that I never did, but mostly I wouldn't. The detectives would do that. And I know that when a guy came in who was super cocky and rich, I knew my detective was going to shred the guy. He was going to eviscerate this cocky piece of shit because this guy just stepped into the arena with the lion. You know what I mean? And this guy was all cocky. He's cocky in his world, but you just stepped into the world of this detective, and this real cocky son of a bitch that may be an MD, a PhD, I don't whatever degrees he had. He's not going to be able to withstand the interrogation of a good detective.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it is also the thought that, hey, I can I'm much smarter than this guy, and I can, use my what we find oftentimes is the subjects of our cases. They might be brilliant doctors, but they're terrible criminals.
Well, their ego doesn't allow them to think that someone with a lesser education is going to be able to destroy them in the box. Phil,
Bingo.
Why don't you talk about that, Phil?
Oh, I'm itching to answer this one because I've been in the box many, many times, hundreds of times. And I know just what Billy's talking about. You get some cocky SOB that walks into the room and he thinks he's going to outsmart you. And as the conversation goes on, the minute I catch him in a lie, and if it's a murder case, and a lot of times it was, my technique was I would slam my hand down on the desk. I'd look the guy right in the eye and say, do you think the judge is going to believe that bullshit? You're going to jail for 25 to life. And then I would slowly watch the color go out of his face. He would turn gray, and then we'd go on from there. So I guess that when you have that shock and awe factor, you got to wait. You got to wait for your right moment. You got to know what time during the interview that you're going to send it in. And when you get that shock and awe moment, changes the whole dynamic.
Yep.
We have seen that in so many of our cases. And I think that, it's not that we want to focus on the Ivy League because we want to look at privilege. We want to look at how people of privilege use that to, get out of things, or, that's really, like Sarah said, how the justice system is often perverted in these cases. And it very often is. And and we've seen time and time again. I mean, Sarah and I the Grenadier case comes to mind. We had a doctor in Massachusetts, brilliant Yale doctor, same thing. I mean, he murdered his wife. And I mean, I just think a lot of these people too are people who've always been first. They've been first in their class their entire lives. They've been at complete successes and they've never been told no, really. And they don't think that some cop who they think they're smarter than is going to outsmart them. And that we've seen them time and time again, them get crushed. And it is very interesting.
You guys
I'm glad you didn't get nervous when I gave you the whole screen, because sometimes people freak out. They're like, "What happened? What happened?"
And
no, not at all. Like I said, we could paint the.
Right.
We could talk the paint off the wall.
We're also, we're in Boston. We're also in Kennedy country here, which has been, another, when you're talking about the justice system being perverted, and so we see a lot of this here. So we really just wanted to explore it.
Laura, what's amazing is that you talk to kids of today, and they have no idea about the whole Ted Kennedy Chappaquiddick incident.
I know.
They're like baffled that happened, and you're like, yeah. And it was an era where there was no social media. The press was so intimidated of politicians. Even the police. Ted Kennedy went to the chief of police of Edgartown and said, "This is what you're going to do."
Bro, he ran the investigation.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Yes, Senator. Yes. Could you imagine today the chief of police has done? No, that's not what we're going to do. You're under arrest. I mean, how he was never arrested for that is unbelievable, right?
Absolutely. And more specifically too, the Kennedys are deeply entrenched at Harvard, particularly.
Yes.
So you've got the Kennedy School at Harvard, you've got JFK Street right there in Harvard Square. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The Kennedys could be a whole season, really. That's the thing. It's just huge there.
I mean, I used to see Ted Kennedy at Harvard commencement because, growing up, we would go to Harvard Square on Harvard commencement. And, Ted Kennedy was kicked out of Harvard for cheating on a Spanish test, which a lot of people don't know. So it used to always amaze me. Now, they did let him graduate later after he took some time off. But it used to amaze me that he'd be at commencement for a school he was thrown out of for cheating on a test.
Yeah, it's just
talk about
incredible.
privilege, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And Sarah and I look at that a lot. And we also look at cases where people come from lesser means and go into the Ivies and are very overwhelmed by the privilege and what they find when they get there.
Yeah, there's a pretty tragic case at Harvard of two female roommates. One was Ethiopian and one, I believe, was of Vietnamese extraction. And it was a murder suicide. And it was this woman was clearly very mentally ill, and she ended up killing her roommate, and she was sort of obsessed with her roommate as well, and then ended up killing herself. And that was definitely a case of somebody who had come to the college very much from a different culture, from a different socioeconomic background, and just couldn't acclimate, just didn't acclimate. And,
Right.
I think had mental health issues on top of that as well. So,
we
it's a tragic case, though.
We would sometimes have to go on the campus of Columbia University. And, they hated the police. Columbia.
I was just going to say, not
Totally
too
hate the
welcoming.
police. And it was like, those people looked at you with such disdain. And meanwhile, if it wasn't for the police, they wouldn't be able to be in that neighborhood. They just had that horrible murder last year where the girl went down into Morningside Park. She was buying weed. I believe they found out she was buying weed, and these three little mutts stabbed her to death.
Yeah.
And that's an example of the neighborhood that's around Columbia University. But yet Columbia University, they're not really police friendly. I'm sure if they're listening to this, they're probably cringing. No, they're not even. All of these academic institutions that don't allow conservative speakers to speak on campus, they attack the stage. They're so open-minded.
Are you familiar with the Jerry Germain case at Columbia by any chance? We'll talk to you guys a little bit about that case, because that's something that Columbia, it happened. He was, I think, a security guard, Haitian guy, got stabbed, never been solved. We'll talk to you guys about that. He was murdered. And Columbia just kind of it never happened kind of thing. So,
well, they're
Another-
so surrounded by the highest tech camera system now that to get away with anything there, they did like a ring of steel around that university now. And, they also have bought up all the property from like 125th Street all the way up to the hospital on 65th Street, I believe it is.
yeah.
And they've taken great criticism from the neighborhood for that, because here's this liberal institution that's, relocating all these poor people that are getting in the way of Columbia University, who has, billions of dollars to do whatever they want.
What
Sure.
year was that, Sarah? What year was that murder?
Jerry Germain, I'll look it up for you guys. I think it was maybe
80s?
I know it was not.
Eight-
It wasn't. I think it was 90s. I'm pretty sure.
90s.
Well,
Well, we were both on the job then. It doesn't sound familiar though, Bill, does it?
No, it
Yeah,
doesn't.
well, maybe-
I was
Maybe we
actually
can
in the
talk to you
2-6. No, I was in the 2-6, which covers Columbia University, for 6 months when I got promoted to sergeant.
yeah.
So that was 1990.
We should do a show on that.
Yeah.
Also.
We
Yeah.
should. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Because it's never been solved.
Yeah.
And, he was it's an interesting backstory as well. And, anyway, I always like trying to warm up cold cases, put it to you that way. So, yeah, well, that would be great. We should do it.
One of the things that I was reading when I did a little research on you guys, that there's this bizarre phenomenon that occurs where people, like if someone in the Ivy League community commits a heinous crime like a murder, that how could they be so brilliant and throw their life away? And then they get these people that champion for them. And I guess that's part of the whole culture of the privilege. And I think that you guys explore that. And I think that takes a lot of courage to do stuff like that, because I could imagine there's got to be tremendous pushback on specific things, specific cases where you have these other Ivy Leaguers, where they be from the political community, or they be from the the social community, or they're alumni from these different schools. So I think that takes a lot of courage to do that. It's very interesting. I found the whole concept of what you guys are doing very interesting.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's courageous. I think we try to just sort of shed a spotlight on these cases. And truthfully, we try to, because it's Ivy League murders too, we try to pull in a little bit of like philosophy, a little bit of psychology, a little bit of literature, a little bit of history if we can. And, but you're right, though. We've seen many cases where people are kind of backed absurdly by their peers because they're from this institution. And it's like, guys, they're just this is a rotten apple. Why are you trying to keep him in the bag, kind of thing?
The reason I think it's courageous, though, is because we're living in a time of cancel culture, and these people in high places in Ivy League schools could really have a social media effect on people that they don't like, so to speak. So that's why
bring it on. Bring it on. Seriously, it's like
Well, when we started this research, I think Sarah and we found a list of like 8 cases on the internet, brilliant killers or something. And it took us about a year. And we have hundreds of cases now of the 8 Ivies and the sister schools. So the cases are out there, lots and lots of them. It's just the schools don't really want you to know about them. So it takes a lot of digging to find the cases.
Laura, Milwaukee Civilian, who's in the chat, he says, is the Ivy League a big enough topic? Will you expand to the Big Ten or even the University of Chicago?
Oh, definitely.
I'm a graduate of University of Miami. So
How did you go to school? How did you do any work, go to school in Miami?
She probably had a great tan, Bill.
Yeah, really?
She didn't.
I didn't. Yeah, it took about
She learned how to pose. That's where she got these poses for the...
I'm telling you, if you see her pictures from that time, she was very, very tan.
Like too tan.
Yeah.
Way too tan.
But
Miami,
to answer the posted question, yes, definitely. We are interested.
Yeah.
The Ivy League is for starters, sister schools. The Big Ten for sure. Yeah, absolutely. We definitely, even some of the European institutions.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just, there's only, but absolutely.
It was a starting place. And, we're in Boston, so we have a lot of interest in BU, Northeastern, the Boston schools. And we work with one of our other partners went to NYU, so we have lots of interest in all different schools. We keep track of cases at all these schools. We just kind of put them separately. And some of our cases touch upon several schools, because a lot of our people went to several schools. So,
we experienced it before I went into homicide in what was it, 2001. I was a RIP sergeant, which is a robbery investigation sergeant in the 2-4 squad. We had a couple of those ritzy schools, the high schools.
Yeah.
And I forget the names of Colgate, Collegiate, some of these,
Yeah.
And these were $50,000 a year high schools. So these kids were getting the shit kicked out of them, getting robbed, going to and from school. And we'd go there, and the headmaster would lie about it. Oh no, Biff didn't get robbed. Did you, Biff? And you can see that they threaten. And meanwhile, the kid's got a big, he's got a big egg on his face. And I go, and I grabbed the headmaster. I said, "You're a lying mofo." I didn't say
Good
mofo. I used the real word. I'm going to let the parents know how much you're lying. And then they were like, "Oh, take it easy, Sergeant." No, you're lying. You're trying to protect the school. These kids are getting robbed every day coming to and from school, and you're lying about it. And I can just imagine Harvard and Yale and times 10 probably the interference they run to.
Nobody wants bad press, especially a $50,000 a year high school.
Right.
We've even had cases with family money where the families haven't wanted the cases pursued because they don't want publicity in their families, which has been really outrageous. And we've seen that, in the Woodward case where people are willing to let go of charges even to avoid scandal and people with great means. And so it's like that means almost more to them than the justice.
What do you guys think about, are you familiar with the Duke lacrosse case where there was the alleged rape and it was covered up by the school? What do you guys think about that?
Boy, I wish I knew.
Yeah, I'd have to brush up on it before I I don't want to give an answer.
Basically the synopsis of they brought 2 strippers home and to a big lacrosse party.
Mm-hmm.
And
they didn't want to pay.
The strippers alleged that they were raped. And it
turned out to be false.
It was false. But the race thing, they immediately went against these rich white kids
did a lot of covering up too on that.
No, but the school got sued. I heard the school parted with $10 million per lacrosse player. The guys, I think there was like 3 or 4 of them who were arrested.
Yeah,
wasn't it the magazine that was involved too? The magazine who wrote the article?
Everyone went against these guys, every single one. And it turned out, you know what it was? They went after the wrong guys because these kids had the means to hire the top attorneys, and they fought it. And the woman who made the allegations, she did a murder a couple of years after that.
Yeah.
So I mean, she was
involved in a murder.
Yeah. So
I mean, privilege can be used against you too. I mean, we have a case of Thomas Gilbert who murdered his father in New York, very wealthy, Princeton. And if you read the headlines, it's like he murdered his father because he lowered his allowance. You see this in the headlines.
Yeah.
And, if you really look into the story, that's not he was a very mentally ill guy. He had suffered mental illness for many, many years. If you look into it deeper, so sometimes the privilege can be held against you too, where he was really painted to be this spoiled brat, which, I mean, he may have been somewhat, but he was also a very sick individual. So the story can be distorted.
Wealthy families, sometimes they'll throw money at a problem as opposed to dealing with the actual problem. I actually had a relative, and I saw that, a relative who was wealthy, and, there was an issue with narcotics, and, throwing money at it just made it worse until it was finally dealt with. So, yeah, I think that's one of the components of why these things mushroom out of control, and then they look to to protect and cover for the person that either commits a murder or whatever they do.
We just did the Von Bulow case, and honestly, Laura and I we'd have to turn off the mic because we would be really fighting about it, like walk out of the room fighting about it, but talk about privilege and, talk about covering up and what was the actual truth and, and all that kind of stuff. And that's where I think the privilege backfired for that family, because they hired a PI, to go into that house and collect evidence, and the chain of custody got broken because of that. And it screwed their whole case, So,
well, I mean, they were we're ready to fight about it.
I was just going to say that the mic is the headphones are going to split.
That's why you shouldn't be sitting in the same chair, because you're too close to each other.
Truthfully.
They were lucky. Klaus von Bülow's lucky he had money, because somebody else could be sitting in jail for the rest of their life for what they did. When people with money are allowed to. It was overturned by the Rhode Island Supreme Court, but you can't be, in my opinion, you can't be allowed to take your money and conduct a private investigation, so and leave the police out of it. And then
one of the things you talk about privilege, you talk about Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein actually had the balls to threaten detectives and a lieutenant from Manhattan Special Victims who were invested. He had the balls to say, you guys are done. Yeah. You guys are going to be working in Staten Island tomorrow. I mean, can you imagine that? I wanted to slap that fat bastard,
Oh my God.
But now it backfired because he's in prison now,
Yeah, I was going to say he's learning now.
You want to hear my Harvey Weinstein story?
Uh-oh.
Absolutely.
Only if it's dirty.
No. Thank God it's not, is all I can say. No, I spent my honeymoon in Montreal, and we went to a restaurant that was outdoors. And I saw kind of a large guy, and I was like, God, that's Harvey Weinstein. This was way, way, way before he was sitting at the table with a very nervous looking, very young woman. And I can tell you that he just gave me the automatic creeps, absolutely automatic creeps. So anyway, that's my Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, he's a dirtbag.
But I'm sure you guys have better stories about him. So
I actually read that story. I think it was what's his name, Farrow, the guy who wrote the story.
Ronan
Farrow. Ronan Farrow. He put that in his story, that he actually threatened the detectives and the lieutenant from Special Victims, like he had the power to do something about them investigating him.
Unbelievable.
The thing that really bothers me the most about Harvey Weinstein is that it went on for so long, it was never reported. And I know one of the people that was on his defense team, a friend of mine who's an attorney, was on the defense team. And there were situations with, very high profile actors. I'm not going to name any names, but they had encounters with him 20 or 25 years ago. And they were pretty bad. There were sexual encounters where they were trying to read for a part or whatever it was, and he did things and came onto them or whatever. And then they didn't come forward until all these years later. So that, I think, was part of the problem. There was definitely a culture of corruption around him, protecting him, all the way to the Clintons, as we all know. So again, it took a lot of courage for those people that did come forward. And once they did come forward, all the other stories came out, and he's where he belongs, I would say.
The really dangerous thing about him was it wasn't just, hey, I'm going to hit on you and you're not interested. It was like, you're going to do this or I'm going to ruin you. Like that's the really, I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that the other alternative is good or acceptable or anything like that. But that was the super dangerous thing about him, And
he actually hired some Israeli security company that were his hitmen, basically, that were designed to get dirt on people who had turned on him, who was making reports against him. So, I mean, there's another thing. Oh, who's this guy? The mafia? He's going to hire some Israeli, He
was like the Hollywood mafia, Bill. That's a good comparison.
But I think the problem with Weinstein, though, he was just a symptom. That whole I lived out in LA for, back in early 90s, and the casting couch was like, it was part of the game. Absolutely.
It was part of the game.
Yep.
LA's fine. The sun shines most of the time and the feeling's laid back. The Rensselaer, I forget the rest of the words.
I just think a lot of people are complicit with Harvey Weinstein. I mean, one man, can't have that much power without a lot of help and a lot of other people keeping their mouths shut.
Yeah. Well, look, Meryl Streep said Harvey Weinstein is God, so I'm sure she
Billy,
regrets
he
saying
probably
that.
had his Ghislaine Maxwell's too, maybe more than one. I'm sure that would.
Sure.
Get these young aspiring actresses that want to make it in Hollywood, steer them towards him. Absolutely, there's other people who are complicit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
This young lady on the screen wrote a book about a Harvard murder that was from years ago. You guys familiar with her?
Yes, definitely. We sort of have a different take on the same case, though.
On the Jane Britton case?
Yeah, the Jane Britton case. We definitely have sort of a different take on it than what I found in her book, at least. So,
Sarah, what's amazing right now is that how many cases from the past are sitting on the shelf that could be solved through DNA that's never been looked up.
Oh my
we
God,
had a young man on recently, Eric Schubert. The kid is like unbelievable. He's 20 years old. He just solved a 58-year-old homicide of a 9-year-old girl through genealogy. This kid is like incredible. And here he is. He's 20 years old. He's one of the top genealogists in the country. And he learned it by himself.
Oh, I love
he
that.
took
It really
it up
is
as a hobby,
amazing.
so to speak. And he actually solved some old murders recently. He's working on several right now. Just amazing.
Speaking of which, and sorry, am I talking too much, Laura?
No, I was
Okay.
just gonna say that this is the beauty of the internet, and with the interest in true crime is you're seeing that a lot. You're just seeing people. We actually covered a missing persons case recently, and his the person's identity was found through social media. I mean, it just, I feel like people are getting really involved. And I mean, we were talking about the Murdoch case earlier, and one of the top Murdoch podcasts, we know the woman Seton Tucker, who is the podcaster, and she was a stay-at-home mom. She just got interested in the case, and now she has a top podcast. People are really interested, and they're not just showing interest; they're doing something about it. They're getting involved.
But you know what's amazing though is that there's some people that are on YouTube that they don't know what the hell they're talking about, but they have 200,000 subscribers, and you're like, how does this happen? This person is clueless. They know absolutely zero. And then there's other people that have the credentials, but they have the ethics of a used car salesman from Detroit. You know what I mean? And we've seen a few of them too. And it's like disgusting what some of these people look. I'll if it takes me 10 years to get to 100,000 subscribers, it'll take me 10 years. I'm not going to be unethical the way some of these people go interview principals on a case while the case is live. Right. To me, that is such a no-no. Right. As to be like, once the guy did it, I was like, this guy's a piece of shit. And he's got almost 100,000 subscribers. I won't say his name. I'm sure people that are watching know who I'm talking about. But that is so unethical that if I was the detective, I would pay him a visit. I would say, you come near any of the principals on this case, I'm going to have you locked up for obstructing governmental administration. He has no right to interview these people.
Well, I mean, if they're represented by attorneys too, I would think that the attorneys would get,
No, they're not. They weren't represented. But one of the things is he interviewed a witness who was a juvenile live on camera and put him in great danger.
Oh, yes.
And just thought, oh, you guys are just jealous I'm doing this. No, you have no ethics.
Talking about is when a detective is investigating a murder, you don't need anybody snooping around or talking to your main players, witnesses, possible suspects. You don't want anybody leading them, giving them information, talking to them. It's just, it would be interfering in an investigation where, we both said at the time when the incident that he's talking about, we both said that we would reach out to that person and say, cis and deceased, don't talk to our witnesses and anything like that. But this podcast stuff is very, very powerful because we were covering the Summer Wells case pretty closely. We did a lot of episodes on that. And early on, we called for the other kids in that home to be, looked at by Child Protective Services. And lo and behold, very shortly thereafter, within a week, they showed up and they removed the kids. Now, we don't know for certain if that was because of our calling for it on the podcast, but maybe it was. Who knows? So
Sure.
there's some positive things that come out of the stuff that we're doing. And Bill and I have said right from the beginning, we're going to try and maintain integrity. We will not, broadcast something that we don't know unless it's a fact. Sometimes people will go into the chat and they'll say, well, this is going on with the case and that. And until we can confirm it, we really don't talk about it. But then there are certain things like the day that Gabby Petito was identified, her remains had been found and she was identified. We were reluctant to report that right away, but then it was clear that the FBI came out and they made they did a press conference. And so then we went along with it. So you have to be careful. You're walking in very sensitive territory with these cases. So you have to really, especially when it's an active case, a missing person case like
Sure.
Gabby Petito and Summer Wells. Those were two very, very high profile cases. And so you really have to be careful, but it's a great thing. I know, to me, being retired, I just had my 19th year retired anniversary yesterday, and it just
congratulations.
keeps me connected. Yeah. Thank you. And, I had a long career. I was on the force for 22 years, did a lot of great things. I can't tell you how much I do love what I did, and I just wish I could go back sometimes. But being part of this podcast stuff and talking about it and getting into it, it just it keeps me connected, so to speak. And I really love it.
Folks in the chat, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. If you're not subscribed to us, please go on our YouTube, hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell. And if you want to support us, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And if you want to join the Police Off the Cuff YouTube family, we have 5 different levels, and you can see the folks in the green font. Most people tonight, and I'm sorry, I was a little bit not sure of the scheduling, but someone said, "Let's go." Brandon is given the is given the State of the Union address right now, and that's where a lot of I can't believe Police Off the Cuff fans are watching the State of the Union rather than us. But that's what happened, and. But you guys that are here, thank you so much for giving it to us over the president.
Billy, you talk about since you brought up Let's Go Brandon, you talk about privilege. Hunter Biden, there was a tremendous scandal that was unearthed right before the election, and it was basically it was not broadcast anywhere. It was shut down by social media. So there's privilege there. And currently, Alec Baldwin experienced privilege. It took 3.5 or 4 weeks to get his phone on a subpoena related to the horrible, horrible shooting of Helena Hutchins. And I could think of another case that's a ways back a bit, but again, there was privilege there. They were afraid to ask questions right in the beginning. The John Benet Ramsey case, they were afraid to search the home because they didn't want to upset Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey. And, I don't know, Billy and I both are of the opinion when it comes to a child missing, a heavy murder case, I don't care who it is. I'm doing what I have to do. And if I have to upset some people, and I've made this statement many times before, and I don't get a Christmas card next year, that's okay. I'm okay with that. Because when it comes to a victim or justice, we have to do what we have to do. So sometimes you ruffle a few feathers or you crack a few eggs, but you got to get the job done,
What are your thoughts on the Benet case?
The John Benet Ramsey case, my thoughts, there's been so many things going way back, both pro and con that they're involved. I think that someone, I won't say who because I don't know, someone within that household was responsible for that young girl's death.
Me too.
Yeah, me too.
Bill,
but then I think
look, I always think you got to look at the family. It's you always got to look at the people closest to the victim.
But we see in a lot of our cases what happened in the Ramsey case, which is these powerful families and these expensive, areas, and the police come in, and the families are kind of running the show. So
no good.
Friends come in, trample over evidence.
Let me tell you something. That happened at the Rayo's homicide. It was disgusting. I'll tell you the story of the Rayo's homicide. It was
Bring them up to date on that. Yeah.
I think it was 2006. There was a wise guy, a real made guy standing at the bar. And this woman who was a Broadway singer was singing a song. And the wise guy says, "I wish that wailing slut would shut the hell up." He used more colorful language.
Profanity.
And some old guy at the bar says, "Hey, buddy, cut her some slack, give her a break, you know. And the guy says, he said something I can't repeat on this show because we'd be X-rated. And the old guy says, no, you won't do that to me. He implied he would anally penetrate him. That's what he said. And so the old guy pulls out a gun and shoots him dead at the bar. Shoots him dead and shoots another guy who's sitting at the table with the owner in the leg accidentally. He walks out the bar and he's grabbed by 2 uniformed cops that were outside. But the point was, they were uncooperative as all hell. The owners of Rayo's, everyone that was in there, you know, all of a sudden had amnesia. Vinny the Vest, the bartender, was cleaning glasses at the times. This guy was looking over there. No one saw anything. But as it turned out, the guy confessed, and we didn't really even need, but it was disgusting just how they thought they were going to, and every boss on the NYPD showed up. They were all coming out of the woodwork, you know? And we're like, this is
you guys familiar with Rayo's in the city in Manhattan? Okay, it's a very small Italian restaurant, but it's got a tremendous following. Anybody in New York City wants to go there. I think Eric Adams was there not long ago.
There's only 8 tables. It's only 8 tables, but it's in a dangerous. No, it's in East Harlem on 115th Street.
Okay.
But that's one of the things about it. It's in a dangerous neighborhood.
Yeah.
So all of these people are like, oh, we can go to this dangerous
neighborhood. It's got that allure. It's got a certain allure.
And Pleasant Avenue used to be all run by wise guys years ago. I don't know if there's any wise guys left, but Pleasant Avenue was all mobsters. And now, you know, Rayo's is left. And now they have that sauce now. Rayo's sauce. It's in every damn supermarket.
Oh, yeah.
The actual
I use Rayo's sauce, but I didn't know about the restaurant.
Idea. It's good. Listen, it's good sauce.
It actually is. It actually is.
Really
I swore I would never buy it because I didn't like the way they treated us. But then I tasted it and I was like, maybe I forget about how we were treated that night.
Forget about it.
Yeah, you had to do it English muffin pizza, right, Billy?
And then the one owner, his name was Frank Pellegrino. He was on The Sopranos. He played the head FBI agent.
Oh, wow.
He played the lead. He was in a lot of episodes of The Sopranos. Yeah.
But these guys thought they were like imitation wise guys, even too. You know, and they weren't going to talk to me. They were going to talk to the chief, you know. And everyone there from the police department was trying to get future reservations, you know. So they're more concerned with getting a reservation, and it takes like 6 months to get a reservation.
Well, the tables are actually purchased by wealthy people. Like Regis Philbin had a table there, and
Bo Dietl has a table. Yeah, it's sort of.
How did you, she's a New York person.
I used to. I don't. I'll have to ask my husband. I don't know. I used to live there. I'm surprised I don't know about it.
I'm the Boston hick, so what do I know?
Yeah, it's pretty well known. Look at it. Go Google it when you
I we will.
Interesting story.
We're going to do a quick. We're going to do a quick commercial break. Philly, get your commercial voice on.
Joe Murray, attorney at law. Have you found yourself in a jam? Are you in need of legal counsel in the New York area? Do you need a victim's advocate? Well, Joe Murray is your man. He's not only an experienced trial attorney, he's also a retired 15-year member of the NYPD. He literally knows both sides of the fence. His website is jmurray-law.com. His telephone number is 646-838-1702. Or you could email Joe at jmurray-law.com. That was 1702 on the phone number.
Yeah, that's our only, besides, Patreon and YouTube, that's our only commercial we do. At one time we had 4 different commercials, but people are banning us. So we got to sell some new ones. I don't know if you guys ever had this. Someone just recently emailed me and said, "Oh, we have this product. It's a great product. And why don't you do a show on it?" And then I realized, am I an idiot? He's trying to get a free hour commercial for his company, right? So I write him back. I go, I don't think that would do anything for us. And then after I turned him down, I realized I'm like, how stupid am I? I emailed him back. I said, yeah, we'll do it. Put $300 in my Venmo and we'll let you be on the show and push your product. And then after that, we'll do 10, 30-second, 45-second reads for $30 a piece. So that's the $300. I haven't heard back from him yet.
No.
Nobody wants to part with the dinero.
Yeah, like all of a sudden he thinks I'm an idiot. He's trying to get a free commercial,
Yeah.
You brought up the Jane Britton case earlier, and that was solved 50 years later in Cambridge.
Wow.
The book was written about it, but one of the interesting things about that case, which wasn't really explored in the book, is that, and Sarah and I really looked into it, was the perpetrator, Michael Sumter. I always say his name wrong, and Sarah always corrects me. We actually kind of believe that he was kind of a copycat of the Boston Strangler. The Boston Strangler had murdered someone in that same building a year before.
Maybe 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4. Yeah, I forget the time frame. Yeah. So, and the Boston strangling murders had all been happening right then. And then this Michael Sumter was a serial killer. He killed several women in Boston. I think 3. I think he murdered 3 and raped several others. And this is just what we know about. And it's never really been explored that he was this serial killer in Boston who killed Jane Britton and killed these other women. It's just kind of like let go. Nobody really ever looked into it.
And
we always wonder if they saved, biological evidence, some of the evidence, if they saved it after all those years, and you could look at some of those cases. That case we were talking about with the genealogical hit from 58 years ago, the girl was 9 years old, and they had her clothing, and it had semen on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they solved that case. So it was like
preserved for over 50 years.
Over 58 years. I mean, and the NYPD, you'd be lucky if they do it for 5 years. They'd be like, oh, there was a flood in the basement. Sorry, all the evidence got destroyed,
No,
that's happened before.
Well, the strange thing, too, about the Britton case is that about a month after, there was a very similar crime that was only a few blocks away. And we think Sumter is responsible for that one as well. So we're not sure why there hasn't been a DNA test on that or not. She actually lived where I grew up in Cambridge. She lived literally 1 block away from me so yeah, it's crazy.
And we snuck in the building and went up to the apartment and, it's
just to get an eyes-on look.
Right. So they basically had this narrative for years that a professor did it. And then when they found out that just this career criminal did it, it's like everyone lost interest in who this guy was. And it was never really explored. But we're interested.
Well, the really strange thing about that case is that when Jane Britton was found, and mind you, she was a absolute, just beautiful 23-year-old graduate student, anthropology, at the time, which it was 1963 at Harvard, which is, that's pretty unusual, and very, very intelligent woman. But they found her, and the perpetrator had built this kind of almost like a weird shrine thing around her head with coats and furs and that kind of thing. And then she had this stuff called red ochre on her body, which was something that anthropology people would know what it was. It's like this weird red clay. So they were convinced it was some kind of professor or somebody attached to the anthropology department. And so for years and years and years, they really kind of ruined people's lives, over this, just, because they had their eyes on a couple of people and they thought it was this person, and it ends up being a total stranger.
Completely.
How did he have occasion to come in contact with that substance? That, would you call it red?
It was in her apartment.
I don't know.
I think it was in her apartment.
I think it could have just been in her apartment, and it was
that doesn't sound like something that a career criminal's carrying in his back pocket.
No, I think it was one of those things where people look at a case and they put so much into a certain clue, and it really had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
And
I know exactly what you're talking about, because I always believe in the theory of KISS, keep it simple, stupid. If something seems really like a conspiracy theory, don't go in that direction.
Right.
Keep it the simplest thing. That was always the right way to do investigations in my experience. A lot of detectives, we call it spitballing. We would be in the office talking about what, we come back from the scene or whatever and start throwing out theories, and there'd always be somebody have this crazy theory, out in left field someplace, and I'd be like, put on the brakes on that. Let's go in a direction that's most logical, and you got to keep
where the evidence is going to lead you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But sometimes on the police department, though, the highest rank makes the decision, even though the decision is wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
And I would always say, and you have to follow orders, but listen to what the detectives are saying. The detectives are all saying that that's the wrong direction to go. And it's always proven as time goes on that the detectives were right, because
It
they're
must
the
be.
ones.
It must be so frustrating though to not.
Yeah, because
be-
Here's
sometimes
how
they'll
we
have
handle that in the squad that I worked in. Now Billy will relate.
No,
to
but
that.
they'll have sometimes if they have the police, the chief of detectives making the decision from one police plaza, or even higher, if the police commissioner says, no, bring that guy in and lock him up. And the
we have
detectives are
times
saying,
from
he
the-
didn't do it. He didn't do it. Sorry, the boss said lock him up. And it's happened before, you know?
Yeah.
We would have influence from the mayor's office sometimes, and whether it be the chief of detectives or the borough chief or whatever, the bosses that I worked for would always say, all right, do that, whatever it is, do what they say, but keep going in the direction that you're going. And so we would try to do a parallel thing, but putting somebody in handcuffs that didn't do it, that's unethical in my book, and I could never be okay with that. That's just something I would not do. I would refuse to do that. You just cannot do that. I don't care. They could be a career criminal, committed 1,000 things. If they didn't do what I'm investigating, they didn't do it. That's it.
Right.
And I'm sure Billy
Right.
feels the same way.
We have another case speaking of genealogy, we covered the Bradley Bishop case, which is a family annihilator. He went to Yale, spoke 5 languages, worked for the State Department, was turned down for a job, killed his whole family, killed his 3 sons, his mother, and his wife. Disappeared, has never been found, which is another case which I feel like could be solved, because if there was more interest in it. So we covered this case, and then a little while later we get a call, and it's a woman who did her genealogy, and she found out that was her father. At 60 years old, she did her genealogy, and it came up. Imagine doing your genealogy. You're adopted, and you do your genealogy, and your father's on one FBI's most wanted list.
and murdered
his whole
Murderpedia.
Murdered his whole family.
Wow.
I'm sure a lot of people that they do their genealogy will find out things that they didn't want to know.
Yes.
And it is sort of scary. I mean, that kid, Eric Schubert, I think he makes most of his money through finding lost people.
Oh, yeah.
And finding lost family members. But like police departments will hire him, but they don't pay him. And I'm like, Eric, make them pay you.
Oh,
They
families
have
will pay,
money.
yeah.
No, but I'm talking about police departments.
No, I know. That's probably why he does.
And
goes in the
I
private
know
sector.
police departments, if they can get shit for free, they will get it for free,
So wait, this kid is 20 years old?
Yes.
He started doing it when he was
You gotta
16.
find
He
him.
had
He
knew someone
started
that
doing when he was
adopted.
7. He was 7 when he started doing it.
That's
Yeah, but
amazing.
he actually started doing the research into like a person who was adopted and wanted to find their real parents. I think he said he was 15 or 16, I think, Billy. And that's how we got
Amazing.
into it. And the next
That's
thing you know,
amazing.
yeah. Listen, it's very, very time consuming from what he told us. And Billy's right. If this kid's going to sit at a computer and do all that work and then possibly come up with a suspect, he should get compensated. for
That case took him 2 years to solve.
Yeah.
Wow.
2 years. So, there's also some woman named Cece Moore, and she's on that show with the Harvard professor that caused, remember the guy who was a part with the Obama thing? The cop responded and Obama said he acted very badly.
Yeah.
Oh.
Remember-
Oh, that was in
was- that
Cambridge,
was the Gates
actually.
government.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
the guy
Gates?
who Gates.
Gates,
She's on the show with Gates, and she's the top genealogist probably in the country right now.
Wow.
Yeah, I forget the name of the show, but I was trying to reach out to her, but it's some of these people are tough to get a hold of.
I always tell our listeners, don't ever give up your DNA. Never give up your DNA. Don't send it in. That's how they. That's how.
But they can get it surreptitiously. I love that word, surreptitiously. That
That's
was
how-
I don't know if that was Buffalo State or my master's at John Jay where I learned that word.
Here we go.
It definitely wasn't Harvard. I was never in Harvard. I wouldn't even walk on that campus.
Even surreptitiously?
Well, only if I learned the word like surreptitiously.
Oh, God.
There's so many like police words. The word I always hated was, it would behoove you. And I was like, I never ever heard that word till I became a cop. And then I heard it every damn week. It would behoove you to do this.
That's so funny.
That was when somebody was trying to get their point across. Like, do you want to go back into uniform and work?
Yeah, it would behoove you to do what I want you to do. What I'm asking, not asking, telling you to
Billy,
do.
I was behooved to get 2 haircuts in 1 week back in 1989 when I went into the bureau, and it behooved me to do it, and I did it.
Yeah. You know, they had transit police had the greatest expression. They would write in a police report that they described the description of the perp, and they would say he fled to parts unknown. And I always went, where the hell did that come from? Fled to parts unknown.
What's the matter with
I
that?
know, but I'm just saying, where did that come from? Did that come from like the history of the police department? Someone wrote that on the report once, and then it became accepted vernacular, you know?
It
awesome.
sounds like something from like the 19th century or something.
Yeah, he fled to parts unknown.
Could we talk a little bit about the case that we're going to be recording tomorrow?
Sure.
So this is a case that's sort of near and dear to us, and it's actually a case that I worked on as well. And this is the Richard Sharp case.
Dr. Richard Sharp.
Dr. Richard Sharp. He was a Harvard medical guy, and it is. I had sort of an interesting piece. So this is where the podcasting and the PI stuff for me has intersected. And so tell them a little bit about Richard Sharp, because
You're gonna put it on me.
She opened up Pandora's box, and now she doesn't want to.
No, it's an important case, because it really was the case that Laura and I connected on. Because as far as I knew, Richard Sharp was a case that came about in 99 or 2000, and then it just kind of went away. And I just thought nobody had heard of this case other than me. And I, worked on this case. At the time, it made huge headlines because he was a Harvard doctor. He killed his wife in cold blood. He was a cross-dresser. There were all kinds of elements to he was very, had a very successful dermatology practice. And
he was a dermatologist. He did laser hair removal, and he was a very bizarre man. He kind of removed all
That's
his own
strange.
hair.
That's strange to do even that anyway. I mean, that's a strange profession, right?
Well, it's very profitable.
But
he turned out, he was actually, all that kind of aside, he was a very abusive, kind of addictive man who winds up killing his wife. But yeah, when Sarah and I, our first kind of date, just friendship date, was we went
was that the date you were talking about?
No, we went to the crime scene. That was the first time we got together. I know.
Or was it the tie-dye pants date?
No, that was an LA date.
Or was it this date?
No, we weren't getting along that day.
I posted that, and someone said that was their house behind you. I don't know. Someone said that.
No, that's a dorm at Harvard. That's not their house.
Okay. Someone said that's my tombstone.
Yeah.
Bill, I just got a text message. Why do a show during the State of the Union? I'm like, oh God.
Thanks a lot,
Big Nick. That's my brother, Big Nick. Thank you.
Yeah, next time you can invite us on during a big game.
That's right. The Super Bowl.
Yankees, Red Sox, maybe.
Maybe then. Or the New England Patriots, New York Jets.
But
I know, right? Well, we don't want you guys to be sad when you lose. So
I know. Well, that's for sure. The Jets always lose.
Yeah. But so we're gonna. But these cases, it's another doctor and another big New England case.
Where does that case stand now? It's still unsolved.
No. They thought he killed her in cold blood. He was, absolutely went to prison. And in fact, I think it was 2004 or 5, I actually got, I got Richard Sharp as a case because he had made death threats, or allegedly made death threats about, to the prosecutor. And so I had to go into Walpole prison, behind the cells, and talk about creepy, and do sound tests to see how much you could hear between the cells, because he had basically talked to another prisoner and allegedly and offered him money to kill the prosecutor. So
And a third person heard it, or was the
a third person, a CO, heard it, but it was kind of a anyway, it was kind of a moot point because he was in prison for life anyway, and he ended up committing suicide in 2009 anyway.
Okay.
Oh, that saves the system a lot of money,
Yeah.
Guys, we're coming up on an hour, and we usually don't like to go over that because especially all these people that are going to be running to hear the replay of Let's Go Brandon. But we're going to have you guys on again, because there's some very, very interesting cases. We're doing a lot of different things. We don't just, we sort of concentrate on real crime stories. And, but I've been also covering a little bit of this Russian invasion of Ukraine during the daytime. It's just so horrendous. That
it is so horrendous.
It affects everybody. And it's like the politics of it. You can obviously see I'm pretty far right. But when I see idiots like John Kerry, who's also from your neighborhood, what a moron. He's like, I want to go to Putin and tell him he's affecting climate change. I was like, is this guy smoking crack? I mean, I cannot believe he said that, I'm the climate czar,
I heard a story earlier today that some of the Russian troops were actually plugging holes in their tanks and different gear to run out of fuel so they didn't have to go into Ukraine.
Of course they are. These are their cousins, their brothers, their sisters.
Yes,
I mean, nobody wants this war.
Terrible.
I don't get it.
He's a madman. He's very smart, but he's a madman. He's out of control. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is going to be. I don't know what the end result is going to be, but I just hope that he doesn't drag us into some type of a conflict, because that'll be catastrophic for sure.
I'll tell you, on my screensaver, I have a picture of a beautiful Ukrainian woman who said, you know what? I got my manicure done. I have my Kalashnikov. I'm ready for the Russians. Let's go. She's all in military gear. And
it was actually Miss Ukraine was,
yes.
She was in a bikini in one picture.
Yeah. What about
another picture? She had her rifle. Yeah.
I love it,
Even the president, you got to give the president credit. He's ready to go down fighting.
Zelensky's amazing.
He's amazing. Yeah. He's like the new hero.
He is. Yeah. You know what the Ukrainians? Oh no, maybe it's a little off color, so I won't say it. But well, I don't know. I mean, I
don't have to be politically correct here. Go.
No, all right. Well, so you know what the Ukrainians love Zelensky, right? And you know what he said was like, "Don't send us transport. We need arms, basically."
Right.
And so what the Ukrainians say about Zelensky, they say, well, he couldn't get on a plane anyway. He's got balls of steel.
Now that was worth it. That was worth it.
That's great. Philly, last words.
Last words, ladies.
Listen to Ivy League Murders, please.
No, I'm going to give you last words. I'm giving Phil his last words. I'm going to give you your own chance at your last words.
Okay.
Ladies, thank you so much for coming on. Unfortunately, it was the State of the Union tonight. Not that many people are going to hear us, but so what? We had a great time. You guys have to come back. I think it's very interesting. I was reading about how you guys met over this trying to adopt a kitten and stuff. I think that's a great story. So, yeah. So again, thanks so much for coming on. Keep up the good work. This is really interesting stuff. And if you ever need to ask a question from seasoned investigators, you have two right here. Anytime, we would be glad to answer a question or come on and discuss whatever case it is. So it was a pleasure to meet you guys. Thank you.
Sarah, before I give you the last word, I just want to know, do you still have those pants?
Be careful what you look for.
Sarah, last words.
I was just going to say, please, let's talk about the Jerry Germain case. That's a case that is a cold case. Very good man, and it should be solved. So, and that has to
cool.
do with
Look, the next time you guys
that's
come
right
on,
up our alley, so that's no.
Yeah, we'll definitely cover that, and we'll just cover that.
We'll send you all the information.
That would be great, folks. Thank all you people in the chat that chose not to listen to Brandon tonight.
Yeah.
And instead,
thank you, everybody.
Instead,
we got to
give Laura
last words. We got to give Laura last words.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Laura. I thought you guys were Siamese twins. You was talking out of one mouth.
Yes, listen to Ivy League Murders. We're on all our socials, Ivy League Murders, and we have a great Facebook group. Almost 2,000 people in it. We'll post this on our Facebook group.
Please do.
And listen to Ivy League Murders and listen to Police Off the Cuff. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. It was great to meet you. Folks, be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Awesome.
Stay safe.
One episode just ain't enough.